Hey there, it's Scott Dickers of How to Write Funny. How are you? It came to my attention today, thanks Ruben, that The Onion is hiring staff writers. And so I thought I'd do a video on best practices for how to get a job writing for The Onion. I was the editor-in-chief of The Onion and co-owner for many years. I hired many people. I'm not there anymore. I don't hire people anymore, but the culture is largely unchanged. The current editor-in-chief, Chad Knackers, is someone I hired back in the 90s. And I think I can provide some insight into how to get a job writing for The Onion. So before I get started, please like and subscribe to this video if you're on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, why are you on Facebook? And if you're on Twitch, hello, because I'm on Twitch right now too, believe it or not. And that's how it works. You know, you like and subscribe and more people find these videos and the world becomes a funnier place. So that's why I'm here. I represent the website How to Write Funny, where I provide tools and tips for improving your comedy writing, no matter what medium you're writing in. So about The Onion and how to get a job there. I'm going to give you 3 pro tips in this video. But first, I want to ask, why do you want to write for The Onion? That's important because here's what I see a lot. And I'm not saying this is you, but this is what I see. People feel like they can just apply for The Onion without any comedy experience, get lucky, get hired, and get like a golden zip line to one of the best comedy jobs in the business. It's probably not going to happen. 0.01% chance of that happening. When I was starting out in comedy, I would never have imagined submitting to write for Spy Magazine, which was at that time the finest humor publication in America. It just never crossed my mind. I don't understand why someone would want to write for The Onion now, because it's like one of the hardest places to get a job. Everybody's applying for it. It's so much easier to just write your own comedy and put it on a blog and build your own publication, which is what I did, which is why we have The Onion. So do that. Just start writing, put your writing out there, make it different from The Onion, because in comedy, when something's different, when something's original, that's what people get excited about. And you could blow up and you could have the next big publication. You could have the next Onion. There's nothing stopping you. But let's say you do want to write for The Onion. How do you do it? Here's how you do it. 3 pro tips. First, pro tip. Do the prerequisite work. Okay? If you're just somebody who thinks they're funny, who likes The Onion, who dreams of writing for The Onion, but you've never done any comedy before, you're not going to get hired at The Onion. The Onion wants to hire people who have some comedy background, who have some experience, who are actually already doing comedy writing and doing the work that they want to hire you to do. You should never apply for a job that you're not already doing. And that applies in this situation. Start your own comedy blog, do stand-up, do any sort of comedy in any sort of medium you can. Build a body of work so that when you apply, you're not just some nobody who's never done anything. You're someone with a big body of work that The Onion can look at and say, oh, okay, this person is serious about doing comedy. The level of competition for a staff writing job at The Onion is so heavy that even the interns at The Onion have to have very accomplished comedy backgrounds and a large body of comedy work in order to be a staff writer. So when you do the prerequisite work, maybe you're even on The Onion's radar. If you apply and you're not on the radar, at least they see that you're serious about it and you're doing the work. Even then, you're still probably not going to get hired to be an Onion staff writer. You might get hired to be an Onion fellow or an Onion intern. And that's what I would recommend. That's one of the most, that's one of the best ways to get hired as a staff writer, is to set your sights a little lower and apply when they're hiring interns or fellows. You want the same rich body of experience, but it's easier to get those jobs. And once you get a job as an Onion intern or an Onion fellow, it's much more likely that you're going to get hired to be a contributor or a staff writer. Almost all of the staff writers were at one time interns or fellows. That's just how it works. It's a very glacial system where people serve as an intern and then they leave, and maybe they're a contributor for a few years, and then there's a staff opening and they apply for that and they come back as a staff writer. The Onion is not a place with high turnover. People work very slowly and steadily to get jobs at the Onion. So that's the prerequisite work. That's what I'm talking about. So tip number 2 is overwrite. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the Onion's job listing, it's on LinkedIn and it's on the Onion's website under jobs. You'll see that they want 20 Onion headlines, and they also want 3 news and briefs and a few jokes from some of their other features. And you should do all that, but to write 20 jokes that work as good Onion headlines, you want to write at least 200 Onion headlines and pick your best 20. Don't just write 20. Don't just eke out, 18. I got to do one more. Okay, I got the 20. I got them. I'm going to send them in. You're never going to get the job. Your headlines are simply not going to be up to the Onion's standard of quality. The Onion headline is written by producing thousands of headlines from dozens of contributors, and then the best, dozen or two are selected for a given week. You need to do the same thing. Write at least 200 headlines, pick the 20 best. That's what I mean by overwrite. That's a simple tip. That's how you get the quality. Quantity is the key to quality in comedy. And the final pro tip here, get feedback. A lot of people think they can just write in solitude and secretively whisk their submission off to the Onion, and the Onion staff will be wowed by it. That's not how comedy works. Comedy is only funny if people laugh at it. So you need to test your jokes to make sure people are laughing at it before you ever send it to anybody else in a professional capacity. So you can join the How to Write Funny Facebook group, and you can post your Onion headlines there and get people to vote on them. If you post them as a poll, that's really easy. If I were applying for a job at the Onion, I would write at least 10 to 20 headlines a day for as many days as I could up until the point at which the submission was due. And I would post them on the Facebook group, the How to Write Funny Facebook group, and I would take the headline that got the top vote count that day, and I would add that to my short list. And I would only use those jokes that got the top number of votes. Okay, so there are other ways to get feedback. There's getting votes on your headlines. That's easy. The trickier part, and now I'm going to get into the real crux of the problem with a submission to a writing staff job at the Onion, and that is the news and briefs that they want you to write. So there are many mistakes people make. You're going to want to write 3 news and briefs using headlines from your list of 20. Most people will pick the wrong headlines to write a news and brief about. You can do a much better job of picking the right headlines if you get feedback on those headlines and you know which ones are most popular. You're going to want to pick the most popular ones to write. Unless, however, it's a headline that's like a big, world-ending, second coming, World War III sized idea. That's not a news and brief. A news and brief is brief. So it's just a little thing like, oh, something happened in Africa today, or, the president, the vice president took a trip to Iceland. That's news and brief style stuff. So pick a headline that works as a news and brief. Then the real trick is the writing of the news and brief. 99% of the news and brief submissions that I see are poorly written, and they're not in the Onion's proper AP style. Now, unfortunately, now the Onion has all sorts of rules. And if you look at the news and briefs on the Onion's website, you'll see that they're all formatted exactly the same. I'm not a big fan of that. I liked when the news and briefs used to be a little different, but they don't do it like that anymore. They're very strict. They want the first sentence to be like a nut graph reduced to a sentence, the second sentence to be a quote, and they have all these sorts of rules. But if you look at the news and briefs on the Onion's website, you'll see the format, and you want to make sure that you mirror that format. But the problem with most of the news and briefs that people write is that they're not funny. They're not written well. The Onion's AP style is very difficult to do well. That's why not everybody's doing the Onion and doing well at it. That's why there are so many poor imitators of the Onion. It's hard to do. So how can you do it better? Well, in my book series, How to Write Funny, the second book focuses on how to write a comedic article. And those of you who have read that book and who have done the exercises in that book are going to be so much further ahead. Talk about doing the prerequisite work. And also, if you've written articles for McSweeney's or Robot Butt or any other humor publication, Shouts and Murmurs, you know how to escalate a short comedy piece. A news and brief is the same thing. It's shorter, so it's like a paragraph, but it needs to stay on track with the headline. It needs to escalate properly. And it's a very strict format that you need to adhere to. Now, you can have it be about any idea, and the jokes can be any kind of jokes you want. The more outrageous and crazy and funny and unique they are, the better. But it's the format that is really strict. Any comedic short piece has a very strict format where you introduce the comedic concept, you do your first beat of the joke that just sort of explains the concept, maybe broadens it a little bit. Then the second beat of your joke is going to expand it further. Third or fourth beats of your joke are going to expand it even further. Maybe you're going to use different funny filters. You're going to expand the world. And then you're going to have a closer, a final joke beat that kind of wraps it all up or destroys it or does something a little different than the other beats. And unless your news and brief has that, and unless they follow the strict track of your headline, like if they veer off from the headline and start talking about weird random stuff, you're doomed. They have to be strictly on point and on voice, and they have to escalate really nicely. They have to get funnier as they go, and they have to be straight. They have to be in that straight AP style. Okay, so some of you have written some comments. I want to respond to those. Those are my 3 pro tips. If you can do those before the deadline of the Onion job, and I didn't look what the deadline was. It's listed on the job listing. But if you've done this prerequisite work, and if you've already been doing 10 ideas a day, like I'm always advising on this channel and elsewhere, then you've already done a lot of the groundwork that's going to put you in the top tier of potential candidates for that job. But if you're not that, and just do your best between now and when the submission is due, and if you don't get it, get them next time. It's a long game with the Onion. All right. DG King asks, can you just hire me? I hate my job. Like I said, I don't work at the Onion. I can't hire you to work at the Onion. I'm sorry you hate your job. Start your own publication. In a few years, why couldn't your publication be as big as the Onion? We can be best friends, go out for steak. Okay, you're still trying to wine and dine me. It's not going to happen. You can put Friends with Scott Dickers on your resume, and I don't think that's going to help you. Important thing about getting a job at the Onion is that the Onion is a meritocracy. They're not going to hire somebody because they're their friend's cousin. That's not how it works. They're only going to hire someone if their submission is really funny. So focus on the submission. Beto, thanks for joining. You're welcome, Chris. Yes, we can still be friends. No problem. Chris, you think the Three Stooges are the best? Well, that's your opinion, isn't it? Well, everybody, that's it. Those are my best tips for how to get hired at the Onion. And thanks, Ruben, for bringing this to my attention. And good luck with your submissions. I hope you all get hired. And if you don't get hired as a staff writer, they might hire you as a contributor, which is a very lonely job where you sit alone at home and send in jokes and you never get any feedback. I'm telling you, the real ticket, don't work at the Onion. Start your own publication. Then you make the rules and you're hiring people down the line. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't that be better? All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. You're welcome, Tim. And have a good night or a good morning if you happen to be in Sri Lanka. Take care.